What if the US had not withdrawn from Afghanistan? Imagine a world where the United States didn't withdraw from Afghanistan in 2021, a decision that marked the end of its 20-year-long military engagement in the region. Would the world have witnessed greater stability, or would the repercussions of staying have been even more destructive? This what-if scenario invites us to reimagine history and assess the consequences of such a hypothetical decision from multiple perspectives: Afghanistan, neighboring countries, and even global superpowers. Let's dive into this speculative thought experiment and see if it sparks a new debate. For Afghanistan itself, extended US involvement could have been a double-edged sword. On the one hand, continued American presence might have meant longer-term support for the fragile Afghan government. With funding for infrastructure, education, and healthcare projects still flowing in, Afghanistan could have had a better chance at building a more stable society. Imagine roads being built, schools being expanded, and healthcare reaching more remote corners of the nation. Perhaps the lives of Afghan women, who made significant strides in areas like education during US involvement, would have improved further. But here's the big question. Would a prolonged US presence have prevented the Taliban's resurgence? Some argue that an extended stay might have allowed local security forces to consolidate their capacities, pushing back insurgent threats more effectively. On the other hand, the risks of staying would have been immense. It's no secret that many within Afghanistan resented the foreign military presence. Prolonged occupation might have further inflamed anti-US sentiments, pushing more people into the ranks of insurgent groups like the Taliban. Would Afghanistan have achieved self-reliance under these circumstances, or merely grown dependent on external powers? This scenario also raises questions about Afghanistan's sovereignty. Would continued involvement have helped shape a stronger nation, or undermined its ability to govern itself? The ripple effects of the US staying would have inevitably impacted Afghanistan's regional neighbors. Let's explore their perspectives. Pakistan would likely find itself in a challenging position yet again. Historically, US-Pakistan relations have been strained due to divergent goals in Afghanistan. Prolonged American involvement might have worsened this relationship, as Pakistan would remain entangled in accusations of harboring extremists and double-dealing. Additionally, Pakistan's internal stability could have been further compromised by pressure to manage its border and refugee inflow, while balancing relations with the Taliban. Meanwhile, India might have seen certain advantages had the US stayed. A strong American presence in Afghanistan could have ensured a form of regional containment, keeping terrorist factions in check and bolstering India's strategic goals in the region. However, the continued rivalry with Pakistan would still have complicated matters, potentially creating more flashpoints of tension. For Iran, an extended American role in Afghanistan would likely have escalated its long-standing tension with the US. With Iran's strategic interests revolving around diminishing US influence in Central Asia, it's safe to say prolonged military intervention might have further agitated Tehran, possibly leading to proxy conflicts or covert operations within Afghan borders. And what about China? Afghanistan is strategically significant to China, particularly through its Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Continued US presence might have deterred Beijing from advancing its regional investments and slowed its economic expansionist strategy in Central Asia. Could this control of Afghanistan have given the US leverage in its growing competition with China, or would it have simply elevated tensions between the two superpowers? In such a speculative scenario, the intricate power dynamics between these nations make one thing clear: stability in Afghanistan ripples far beyond its borders. Now let's shift focus to the United States itself. Domestic perspective. From an economic standpoint, staying in Afghanistan would have come at an immense cost. After 2 decades of war and billions of dollars spent, would the American public have supported another indefinite engagement? Public fatigue from the forever war was already palpable by 2021. Extending the conflict might have further eroded political support for such an expensive mission, particularly as pressing domestic challenges like healthcare, education, and infrastructure demanded attention. But what about America's image on the world stage? Remaining in Afghanistan could have solidified the US's reputation as a global stabilizer. Some may view this as a chance for the US to preserve its credibility amongst allies and assert a strong presence in global geopolitics. However, the flip side of this argument is equally compelling. Overextending by staying in Afghanistan could have branded the US as an empire unwilling to relinquish control, drawing criticism from the global community. From a broader perspective, prolonging the mission might have directly influenced China and Russia, two key US adversaries. A continued American role in Afghanistan could have potentially curbed China's aspirations to expand its influence in Central Asia. Similarly, it might have frustrated Russia's geopolitical maneuvers in this region, where it has sought to re-establish its footing since the breakup of the Soviet Union. But would such a prolonged stay have truly preserved US dominance as a superpower, or would it have siphoned resources that could be better used to address global challenges like climate change or cybersecurity threats? Beyond politics and economics, human lives are at the heart of this debate. What would a continued US presence have meant for the day-to-day lives of ordinary Afghans? Humanitarian aid and development programs might have been sustained, offering education, healthcare, and employment opportunities. This, in turn, could have reduced the refugee crisis that escalated following the Taliban's takeover post-2021 withdrawal. However, with any military occupation comes a darker side. Collateral damage, civilian casualties, and the psychological toll of living in a war zone would have persisted. Would the hope of long-term stability have outweighed the immediate suffering caused by prolonged combat? Additionally, the global refugee crisis could have looked different. With Afghanistan still an active theater of war, more Afghans might have been forced to flee their homes. How would the international community have managed the associated social and economic impacts of larger refugee movements? What's particularly interesting about this what-if scenario is that it forces us to rethink the strategies that could have been. Staying in Afghanistan would have been a complex endeavor. It would have required a comprehensive approach, not just military power, but diplomacy, governance building, and fostering partnerships with local communities. Could the US have succeeded if it had shifted its focus from combat to nation-building efforts in its later years of involvement? Alternatively, some would argue that investing resources in Afghanistan had already reached a point of diminishing returns. The political and economic cost of staying may have far outweighed the benefits, especially given the complexities of counterinsurgency in such a unique and turbulent environment. This brings us back to the heart of the matter. Was the decision to withdraw the lesser of two evils, or did it mark a mistake that will haunt the global order for years to come? It's clear that there's no simple answer to what might have happened had the US remained in Afghanistan. The possibilities range from improved regional stability to prolonged suffering and a greater geopolitical quagmire. But now, we want to hear from you. Do you think staying in Afghanistan would have been the right choice, or was withdrawal, despite its chaotic aftermath, the better course of action? Use the comment section to share your views and join this fascinating debate. If you enjoyed this exploration of alternate history and the speculative possibilities surrounding Afghanistan, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our thought-provoking content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.